6:30 on the dot, so we will begin our tax rate hearing. So if you'd all join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nikki, would you please call roll?
Mrs. Hopper?
Here.
Ms. Matt Franklin?
Here.
Mr. Reedy?
Here.
Mr. Schindler?
Here.
Mr. Seltzer?
Here.
Mr. Spector?
Here.
Mr. Todd?
I am here. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the agenda for the Board of Education tax rate hearing as scheduled for September 28th, 2022?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next, we have 4.01, which is our hearing on the proposed 2022-2023 tax rate. So we'd like to welcome Patty Bedborough, our CFO.
President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Marty, and Mrs. Stover. Tonight, I get the pleasure of going through our tax rate that we are proposing for your approval for all of our members of our district. So first, in reviewing that, we want to look at our changes in assessed valuation. As you can see, overall, there was a 2.12% increase in property values year over year. So that's a combination of new construction, less some adjustments for protested tax settlements. So as you can see, there is various changes at each level. To note specifically, you may wonder on that 19%, I don't think I did that, 19% increase on personal property. That in itself does not mean that all of our property holders went out and bought new boats and cars, et cetera, but it's the overall value of even used cars in the market as well that has driven that increase in assessed valuation. So if we look at the components of what makes up the $118 million change, we had residential new construction, $26,746,700. So this is in assessed valuation dollars. Commercial, we had increases in new construction of $4,461,900. Personal property, which you saw on the page before, $131,261,450. So total new construction is $162,470,050. We had the change in existing property as a deduction of $43,900,060. So that is based on the settlements of protested taxes that has flown through our formula, and then that net change of $118,569,990. Our breakdown in property, when most people drive through Parkway, you think of all of our commercial property, but our largest property class actually is our residential property. So that takes up 64%. And then we have 22% for our commercial property, 14% for our personal property, and then we have a sliver that makes up our agricultural property as well. So this year, we were able to do our calculations on recoupment based on all of the settlements. Most of the settlements actually happened from the time that we levied our taxes and calculate them last year versus when they billed. So we had a little bit lower collection rate last year. So we're able to work through the calculation and come up with an amount that we're able to levy to our taxpayers in this year or two subsequent years. We have decided this year, because of our influx of personal property, that we are going to delay the levying of the recoupment, but that is valued just under $3.5 million for the district. In addition, remember at our last board meeting, we reset our rollback rate on the residential rate. Our rate that we are proposing here tonight includes that residential rollback at 14.55 cents. and that has approximate value of $5.3 million. So it's a little bit higher value than our last rollback, simply because the growth in our residential assessed valuation. So it's based on our total AV for the district. So our recommended rates for your consideration, if we just look at our operating levy, which is all levies with the exception of debt service, we're looking at a total blended rate of 3.5081, which is slightly lower than last year's blended rate of 3.5132. So it's a decrease of 0.0051. Our biggest changes are decrease both in agricultural and commercial property, and a very slight increase, less than 1 cent, in our residential rate. And then when we add in our 49-cent levy for our debt service, here is our total rates that we're asking for your consideration. So 3.9981 as a total blended rate versus 4.0032 from last year. So once again, that decrease of a half cent, so 0.0051 decrease. When we vote on this, we vote based on fund placement. So our operating levy of the $350 and change, we are proposing that that gets split out into 3 funds. Our general fund of 1.2065, our teachers or special fund 2.2406, our capital projects of 0.061, our debt service of 49 cents, and our total then of the 3.9981. If we look, if we look at that impact on the homeowner, as we stated earlier, the total existing home, so taking our residential assessed valuation, backing out the 26 million in new construction, we know that we had a decrease in existing home property of 0.3% based on the protest tax settlement. We also knew that we had the increase at 19%. So these numbers reflect that potential increase to the homeowner and the decrease in the residential property value. So applying then our current rate versus last year with that existing rate, we have a net potential impact for the homeowner of an increase of $35 or 1.5% greater than last year. Are there any questions so far? And then here is our historical residential rate. As you can see, as our total assessed valuations have grown over the years, with each growth in that assessed valuation, you can see the rollback of the residential rate as well. So with these last 2 years almost being neck and neck, you can almost see that flat line of the residential rate as well. So keep in mind, we do have that 14.55 cent voluntary rollback on our residential rate, which is essentially like a fund balance, if you will, of $5.3 million that we're able to assess, but we choose to have that in as voluntary rollback. Once we set that rollback, next year, being an assessment year, we cannot touch the rollback. We cannot touch it again until that second year, so only in a non-reassessment year. So with that, any questions?
That was Debbie.
I don't believe so. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for making it easy to understand and answering the questions before we have them.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Now it's time to call for any public comments regarding the proposed tax rate. Are there any public comments? Okay. Hearing none, may I have a motion and a second that the annual tax rate hearing be adjourned?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all very much. We will see you in 20 minutes for our regular meeting.